Now, many landscape and outdoor photographers will typically class the summer as maybe their least favourite time of year photographically, and that can be for a myriad of different reasons, from the harsh light and the long days with unsociable hours for sunrise and sunset, to name a few. But I think if you remember these select few things, the summer can actually be a really productive time of year for photographers. Now, my first piece of advice is to be very selective regarding where you choose to go out to take photos. Take me today, for example. I've come to a woodland that I've never been to before. I was looking on OS maps, as I often tend to, and I saw that it was an ancient woodland, so broadleaf, lots of variety in terms of trees, and it has some elevation as well, so lots of things that make it inherently photogenic, or at least have a lot of potential for good photos. And sure, it might be better in the autumn, but even now in the summer there are going to be things here that are interesting to photograph. So if you're going to think about where to go with your camera in the summer, don't think about things like conditions, or don't fixate on conditions. Still choose somewhere that is interesting. And that interest doesn't just need to be photographic. It's like in last week's video when I went exploring the old slate quarries in Irori National Park. If I had my camera with me or not, that was still a great day out. And it's the same today. I absolutely love being in ancient woodlands. I find the variety of trees, I find the ecology just super interesting. Having the ability to take photos is a bonus. And I think in the summer, we should be wanting to be outdoors as often as possible. So it's important to choose somewhere outdoors that you really like to spend time. Now, this next tip is a bit of a gamble, but when that gamble pays off, it is absolutely 100% worth it. Now, that gamble has definitely paid off today alone, because I have literally had so many different seasons in the space of the hour that I've been here. I've gone from wearing a fleece to wearing this waterproof coat, and now I'm in a t-shirt because it's really warm. And that is all because I've chosen to come out at a time of day where the weather is very changeable. You can see already that the sun's gone behind the clouds, the wind's picked up. I think there might be a storm approaching, but I sort of knew that going into today because I was looking at the forecast this morning. At first it was saying it was going to be bright, no clouds, blue sky day, and then it went to cloudy and sunny, and then it was forecasting rain showers, and then it was forecasting storms later in the afternoon, and that was over like a 4-hour period. So I purposefully choose days like that to go out with the camera because it just gives me options. If I don't have high hopes for the photography because it's challenging anyway, then the weather conditions completely change how the thing that you're photographing looks. Dark skies, rain is going to create very moody images, and when the sun comes out, that's going to make for a completely different shooting environment and a shooting style. So I just like to give myself those opportunities to get photos. I'm not a fair weather photographer when it comes to the summer. And I think that's the mistake that many outdoor photographers make, is that they look for golden hour, they look for sort of sunrise and sunset, and they look for the perfect conditions. They fixate on the most ideal shooting situation for whatever it is that they're going to photograph. But all you're doing there is you're setting yourself up for failure, potentially, because you put all your eggs in one basket. And, when that comes into fruition, that's great. You'll probably get a really nice photo. But for me personally, I like to just give myself flexibility and stack the deck in my favour. Now, I think all photographers have a tendency from time to time, myself included, to try and seek out opportunities of instant gratification when it comes to photography. If we've penciled in time in our busy lives to pack our camera bag and go walking up a hill or spending hours of our day exploring a particular landscape, then we want to come back from that outing with photos. And I completely understand that, but I think the summer is an opportunity to just take that pressure off ourselves and use it as an opportunity to think ahead a little bit. Wow, wow, wow. What an absolutely beautiful woodland. I'm so glad I came here today. This was literally just a tiny little spot on the Ordnance Survey maps, which highlighted that it was like an ancient broadleaf woodland, but I had no idea it would have this much variety. We've got some really mature trees. Some of the oak trees are really characterful. We've got some really mature silver birches. The ferns here, the bracken is just, there's just so much of it. It's crazy, really. I've been wanting to find woodlands like this since moving to Shropshire back in November last year, because I absolutely love spending time in woodlands and I want to improve my woodland photography. And I typically would have had to have travelled quite a ways to get to some of the old woodlands that I used to go and sort of visit frequently. But now that I've found this on my doorstep, I think I found my stomping ground for this autumn. And that's kind of what I was getting at with that last point that I started to make, is that really we can take summer as an opportunity to just remove that pressure of getting photos right now. I'm taking some scouting shots today. There are just so many little scenes here that I just think are absolutely beautiful that, yeah, right now they're not necessarily the most photogenic, but they just have that potential. Whether it's just like the form of a particular tree, whether it's the depth in the scene because of the recession between front and back with the trees and the understory, or whether it's just the way that the canopy opens up and you just know that there's going to be opportunities when the light is right to create all of that depth. These are the things that we can start to look at now. It's not about getting the final image. It's about understanding the locations that we are photographing so that when the opportunity strikes, when the conditions are right, you can just jump on it and spend less time just kind of faffing around, running around like a headless chicken trying to find something to photograph. I know a lot of photos can happen very spontaneously, and we do have to give ourselves opportunity to, allow for those spontaneous moments. But as I always say, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. I enjoy the scouting process. I enjoy just being able to wander around for a few hours in these really stunningly beautiful places without the pressure of having to get the final photo, without the pressure of running from one place to the next, desperate to get an image. It's just removing the photo making part of the process and just thinking about what you're looking at, what you're taking in there and then. I just don't think there's anything better. And if any of you guys are wondering what this is clipped to my belt, it's actually just my filters from Case. Not sponsored, but one thing that I do like to do, especially when sort of like photographing the woodlands in these very changeable conditions where we've had rain, we've had sun, is that I like to have things like my circular polarizer, my ND filters. I just like to have them easily accessible. I don't want to keep having to go in and out of my bag, because the photos today are, they're not going to be portfolio worthy photos. These are just scouting photos. So yeah, I just want to remove those little annoyances, I suppose, from today's photo outing. So I've been exploring this woodland for a long time now. I've been stopping, periodically to take these little snapshots, but my advice to anybody who is scouting is try not to do circular routes if you can. Try and pick a route that is kind of like there and back, because you'll notice so many things on the way back that you didn't see on the way there. So, it's like they always say in photography, always make sure to look behind you. So I guess that whole there and back again thing just sort of facilitates that. The wind is definitely picking up again. I think the good thing about choosing this location, which has elevation built into the woodland, is that I can see across over the plains, and there's still a lot of weather out there There's a lot of heavy cloud, a lot of ominous looking clouds. So yeah, the weather is not done yet. Might have to get my coat out again in a little bit. And I think in the spirit of taking the pressure off ourselves, another thing that the summer is great for is just giving you that freedom to experiment with different types of photography, different styles of shooting or photographing, you know, genres that maybe you don't typically photograph during the times of the year when you're a lot more prolific in the type of photography that you really love to, you know, pursue. It's like in last week's video, I took one photo of this kind of like outlet pipe with some ferns around it, and I was kind of leaning into the conditions and shooting at a very slow shutter speed. Yeah, put my teeth in, and it created just a really nice effect. It really showcased how the conditions were impacting that particular environment. And I've seen similar shots today with all of this new bracken, you know, because it's quite changeable and stormy today. You know, I've just experimented shooting woodlands at slower shutter speeds. It's not something that I typically do. I think for woodland photography, typically you want to convey that sense of like peacefulness and that sense of like serenity that woodlands often, you know, provide and convey. And, you know, showcasing how the wind kind of whipping through the trees, roughing up all of that understory, it is kind of in contrast to that, you know, feeling of serenity. It's showing how ferocious the winds can be and how it can disrupt the trees and the foliage. So I experimented with some shots like that today, which, you know, I typically wouldn't do, but today I'm giving myself freedom to just go with that. Yeah, this weather is definitely picking up, so I am now going to put my fleece on again. Ugh. So annoying. And if you were looking for any more proof that photography during the summer can be enjoyable, then the last two videos that I've done today and last week are by far the two best outings I've had with my camera in such a long time. And both of those days out have been in the summer. So really, it's just a case of leaning into it and just being a little bit mindful about how you approach it. So I hope you enjoyed this week's video. I am nearly back at the car now, so I'm going to wrap it up there for today. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. And if you did enjoy this video, if you found it helpful, do make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel using the little subscribe button down below, and ring the bell to get notified of new videos when they come out, which is every single Wednesday. So I hope to see you in the next one. Take care, guys.